Spring training is around the corner, and today we look at what we think the Cardinals lineup might look like for opening day, and then what we wish it would look like for opening day. This is Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm JD Hafford, and I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. You can follow me on Twitter X at JD Sports Radio, as well as the podcast at LO_Cardinals. We want to thank those of you who make Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube. If you're going to go there, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. Hit that notification button so you don't miss a single episode, because this is a show serving Cardinal Nation and giving the best fans in baseball all of the info about the birds on the bat. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use that code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Joining us again today, our good friend Thomas Gauvain from RedbirdRants.com. Thomas, how are things in Kansas City? Back to the big game. Go the Chiefs, buddy. It's got to be a fun time to be there.
Yeah, the city's on fire right now. It's pretty cool to see the excitement that everybody has for the Chiefs. It's 4 out of the last 5 years, I think, so we're pretty spoiled, I guess.
Yeah, when does it just become old hat? Like, well, yeah, duh. Of course we're going to the Super Bowl again. Like, no big deal. I mean, That's just what we do. Kind of the way the Cardinals used to be the team that went to the playoffs every year and, use that devil magic and made a nice long run and, perhaps could shock some people and win a World Series. But it's a different world this coming season for the Cardinals. Spring training is a couple of weeks away. And with little to no movement for the Cardinals, we thought that might as well, because I'm not expecting anything huge outside of maybe an Arenado trade. But even if he does get traded, you don't expect like pieces to come back that are going to affect the starting lineup or what, your top 25, 26 guys are going to be. In all likelihood, it would be some sort of prospect coming back in return. And those are probably not going to be guys that are going to be on the roster right away. So, it may seem a little bit early to do something like this, but it's what we're talking about. We're talking about what the opening day lineup might look like with everyone healthy and with Arenado still on the team. And then we'll do a separate version of what we think the lineup should be, or what you think it should be, more specifically, Thomas, if Arenado gets traded. So we're going to break it down through the starting lineup. We'll do the rotation. We'll go with the bench, and we'll go with the bullpen as well. So why don't we go ahead and rip off what we think the starting 9 are going to be? And if you missed this tweet by Thomas, make sure you give him a follow at Thomas Gauvain on Twitter X. But well, we'll let you do the honors if you want to. I got it in front of me, but it was your tweet, and it's what gave me the idea to talk about this, because I'm more interested in this than almost anything else that's going on with the team right now.
Yeah, this is about all we have as Cardinals fans is lineup speculation, if that tells you where the offseason's been. So my thought process with this was what I've been hearing from management, Marmol, and what Marmol did last year. We got Pedro Pages at catcher, Contreras at first, Brendan Donovan second, Arenado at third, Mason Wynn at shortstop, and then the outfield goes Nootbaar, Siani, Walker. I wrote Alec Burleson as DH, but that's probably a mistake. It's probably Nolan Gorman over Alec Burleson at DH. The bench is Herrera. It'd be then Burleson, Sajaci, and Lucan Baker.
All right, let me stop you there. So yeah. Why do you think Nolan Gorman over Alec Burleson in this particular scenario, considering Nolan Gorman was in the minors last year while Burleson led the team in home runs?
All we've been hearing is 500 ABs for Gorman, and we haven't been hearing that for Alec Burleson. I also think the infield's probably more crowded than the outfield, depending on where you throw Brendan Donovan. Wherever he's placed, the other area opens up a little bit more. So if he's left field, the infield's more open. If he's infield, outfield's more open. And Burleson's a little bit more one-dimensional as far as what he can contribute. He can be first base, but Wilson Contreras will get a lot of reps there. I wouldn't be surprised if Herrera gets some reps there too. So I think between Gorman and Burleson, they want to see more out of Nolan Gorman than they do Alec Burleson.
All right, that makes perfect sense. Let's move on to your starting rotation. What do you got as the current starting five for the Cardinals? What you think it might look like?
Yeah, and I have these in order of best to least. Sonny Gray, Eric Fetty, Andre Palante, Miles Michaelis, and then Steven Matz. Not
Okay.
a very inspiring rotation.
Well, see, here's my thing about their rotation. Healthy, it's like
Yeah,
solid. You know, obviously you need Palante to be what he was last year in the second half, which would be
right.
huge. Want Eric Fetty to be what he was like in the first half of last year with the White Sox, and then we're not looking so bad. I mean, I know it's the Michaelis thing. We give him a lot of flack here on the show, and deservedly so, because he gets hit around a lot. But at the same time, you know, he's a dependable guy that gets you, 32 games and, led the team in quality starts last year. Him being a 4 or a 5 instead of like your 2 or 3, which is kind of where
Yeah,
he was last year, is a lot better in my opinion. But, I can see why people are like, oh, that's so gross. But, like, I mean, you've got him on the team. He's not going to the bullpen. What else are you going to do with him?
yeah. I think the grossest part about Michaelis being in the rotation is that he is a 4 or 5, but he's being paid like a 2 or a 3, and that's
Right.
just tough to swallow. So we need a guy who can log 108 innings with a 4.5 to 5 ERA. Like, that's a valuable pitcher, but not for his price point.
Gotcha. All right, moving on to the bullpen. Closer Ryan Helsley gets it moving.
Yeah, Helsley, and then the next 4 or 5 guys are givens, and then the back of a bullpen is always a crapshoot. So I've got Helsley, Libby, JoJo Romero, John King, Riley O'Brien, and then here's probably the biggest twist, I guess: Graceffo, Ryan Fernandez, and then the minor league's best closer, Matt Swanson, in the back end there.
All right. Looking at those, there's not a lot to. There's not a lot of arguments to be made there. I mean, I like having Swanson up, whether or not they trust him enough. It kind of, this is like you said, you're talking about your final 2 spots in the bullpen. So obviously spring training is going to be a big part of this, deciding on who's that going to be. Would a Chris Roycroft, if he ends up having like this monster spring training, look good, sure, he could be that last guy. Not really.
Kyle Leahy.
Yeah, there's not a lot of here that, I mean, you can argue for any of these guys, and it's probably going to be performance based. It's not like outside of, like you mentioned, Helsley, Libby, JoJo, King, Fernandez, these other guys, even Riley O'Brien. I mean, I don't know if he's got a guaranteed spot, to be honest, but those are where, performance here in spring training will obviously come into play, and you can shuffle those guys around a little bit. Now, this in the tweet, so we want to put that out there again, is that this is what you think the Cardinals are going to do. Okay. And then you came back because you were like, but if I was in charge, if Thomas Gauvain was running the show, some things might be a little bit different. So what are some of the changes that you personally would make or would like to see happen after the Cardinals, if that's the idea of what they might do? And, when we think about how the Cardinals think about things, how they react to certain situations, how they make people who, just because they make money, they're like, well, they have to play, even if they aren't good. Even though they've already spent the money, shouldn't matter if they're not performing. But either way, how would you change things if you were in charge for opening day? And maybe we can go through, especially the changes that you make, like like a catcher. You would rather see Ivan Herrera as your catcher instead of Pedro Pages if you were in charge. Why is that?
His offensive abilities. Pedro Pages I think he was 80 WRC plus last year, which is 20% below average. Meanwhile, you've got Ivan Herrera, who was just busting the seams off of every baseball he hit. I know he's got some defensive concerns, especially when it comes to base runners, but those things can be fixed. It's tough to add offense that we need out of Pages behind the plate. You can adjust base running. You can adjust how pitchers keep runners on much easier than you can go hit for 300, Pedro. Like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So
first base, you've still got Wilson Contreras. At second base, you switched it out. Brendan Donovan not at second base. You have him somewhere else. And you've got Thomas Ujasi in at second base. Why the change there?
If we're going young, Sajasi is probably our best MLB-ready young infielder who hasn't really gotten a full taste of the majors. So throw him in at second base every day. Have him be Matt Carpenter 2.0. That's my hope here.
Do you think we'd call him that if he wore batting gloves? Like, do you think that would be a thing?
No.
That's like the one thing is that they have in common, and it's just like we just as Cardinal fans, it's what we do. Third base, a change, not in first names, but in last names. You've got Nolan Gorman playing third base instead of Nolan Arenado, and that's because you're anticipating a Nolan Arenado trade, so that's why that makes sense to move him there. We already mentioned having him in the lineup is something that the Cardinals desperately want to do. 500 bats is what they're shooting for. They want to see what he can do. They want to see if he can handle the ups and downs without the threat of going to the minor leagues. And I'm one of those guys that's on board with that because I think most of the problems for Gorman, and it just in my opinion, is the mental side of things. I think physically they're the tools are there, man. He's got it. And I just think he can't get out of his own head sometimes and really gets down on himself. Just reading body language is where I get that from. Shortstop, you still got Mason Wen. Here's where we got Brendan Donovan. You find him in left field instead of Lars Nootbaar. Nootbaar, you've got going to center field instead. And why the change there?
Yeah, I think this lineup I have here is our best offensive lineup that we can have, especially if Nado's traded. There's been a lot of chatter. Derek Gould's mentioned this many times about moving Nootbaar to center. There's some injury concerns, but if Brendan Donovan is going to get 600 at bats, he's going to be a Uto guy, but putting him in left field for most of the season is probably best. And then you shift Nootbaar over to center. You sacrifice some defense here as opposed to Siani or Victor Scott II being out in center. But this is a pretty heavy, potent offensive lineup.
Yeah. And what was the problem with the Cardinals last year? Everybody say it out loud. Offense. Offense was the problem. And it was nice having Siani doing what he did in center field last year. It was a lot of fun to watch. I clearly enjoyed it. He was one of my favorite guys on the team last year. But if you don't score, you're not winning. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, he's your prototypical fourth outfielder, fast, defense first. Like that's what you need.
And it just makes so much more sense. And you mentioned the injury issues with Nootbaar over the years, where it's always been these kind of freaky, weird injuries that happen to him. And sure, we're gonna have more chances to get injured by playing in center field. But I mean, you can't put him in a bubble wrap out there. Like you got to let him play ball. Like you just have to do it. If he gets hurt, he gets hurt. So what? Then you go back to Siani or you go to Victor Scott or something like that. But you've got to score runs. You got to put runs on the board to win in this league. And Lars Nootbaar is certainly a much better hitter than Michael Siani is at this stage in his career. Right field, you've still got Jordan Walker out there, which is completely fine with me. And then you get to slide Alec Burleson into DH because Nolan Gorman's over at third base, so that makes a whole lot of sense. Bench-wise, though, you did make a change. Obviously, we flip-flopped some people, so now it's Luke and Baker, Pedro Pajes, and Siani on the bench. But you also threw in a guy that the Cardinals got in that trade with Jack Flaherty and the Baltimore Orioles, Cesar Prieto. You've got him on the bench. What's your thought process with having him there?
He can play all across the infield, so he can be Wynn's backup shortstop. He hit almost 300 in AAA last year, so there's at least some of an offensive profile there. He's your 26th man, essentially, that you're not spending $5 million for.
True. And he also left-handed hitter off the bench as well, so you would have Siani and Prieto from the left side, Pajes and Baker coming from the right side that are still on the bench. And it's a guy, too, that, putting Sajasi on the bench, like I don't know how good of an idea it is at this point in his career, like just having him kind of rot there where you see what your normal infield's probably going to look like, where Cesar Prieto is not a guy that you're banking on to become something more. You think a good utility role would be a pretty good ceiling for Cesar Prieto at this point. And if he outshines it, so be it. That's great. But again, that's why I really, when I saw you had his name on the list, I was like, I like it. Why go spend money on something where you might have it just sitting here for cheap? Why wouldn't you give him a shot? Why wouldn't you do that?
Throw him on the bench. Why not?
Starting rotation: Sonny Gray, Fetty, Palante, Michaelis. The number 5 spot, you've swapped out Steven Matz, and you got former first-round pick Michael McGreevy in there. Explain yourself. How dare you do this to Steven Matz?
Sorry, Steven. McGreevy was good in his showing last year, and I think we just need to give him a full run. Like, very rarely have the Cardinals just thrown out a pitcher, said, you're our starting pitcher. You're not going to flex from the bullpen to the rotation. just go throw 140 innings for us on the back end. Like, that's what you need to do with McGreevy. If this year is to see what we have in the young guys, put him at the number 5 pitcher, throw him out there every 5 days. If he gets rocked in 3 innings, that's fine. Pull him, go to the bullpen. If he doesn't and he can make it through 6 or 7 and it's a good start, that's fine. That's what you're supposed to do with young number 5, number 4 starting pitchers. And the Cardinals haven't done that. If they're going to go young this year, let Michael McGreevy go for it.
I'm in full agreement with you on this because I don't. What are we trying to get out of Steven Matz? Like, this is not a team that you're like, well, we've put this team together to win a pennant. No, not really. We haven't. And what is the point? Like, Steven Matz, I think, has as much value as your number 5 guy as he does as your swing guy, long guy in the bullpen. I mean, how many times did we go to double headers going, shoot, what do? We don't have what?
Yeah.
What? And all of a sudden you got Liberatore making starts and stuff. And like, instead of screwing around with him, screw around with Steven Matz. Let him be that guy. And if he gets hurt, oh, well, he's been hurt every single year. You're used to it. To the bullpen,
the 32-year-old.
Yeah, it's whatever, man. You've already paid the guy. Like, what is the point? Like, there's nothing left to see. You want to know what you got in Michael McGreevy. This is why you bring him. You don't let him sit in the bullpen and pitch every once in a while. You go and find out what the hell he's got. That's what you do. So you got Matz in the bullpen now. Helsley, Libby, Fernandez, Romero, King, Graceffo's in there again. And then you threw in another name. This would be a free agent pickup who, as of right now, has not signed anywhere. A guy I've been a big fan of. I'm assuming you have been too because you've got him on this list. Who is your addition, free agent-wise, to this bullpen for the Cardinals, Thomas?
It would be free agent David Robertson. He has been an excellent late-inning reliever. He is turning 40 at some point this year. So there's that. But he's going to be the veteran in the bullpen because right now it's Ryan Helsley. Like, he's your oldest guy. He's 30. You need an Andrew Kittredge. You need someone else who has been there, done it, lived the life of an MLBer. Bring him in, have him be there for the experience for guys like Libby or Fernandez or John King or Gordon Graceffo.
All right. I mean, I would love to have David Robertson on this team because he's also an asset that if he signs and he has his normal numbers, which has always been consistently good, like for the most part, very rarely, very once in a while, he kind of, they had a spike here and there, but most of the time he's pretty darn good. He's an asset that you can ship at the deadline. Obviously has not had a problem being traded over the years. He's been with a number of teams. So think about that down the stretch as well. So, what are your thoughts on all of this? That's what we want to hear from you guys in the comments section. Obviously, you can hit us up on Twitter X as well at Thomas Gauvain or at JD Sports Radio. But let us know your thoughts on this. Do you agree with Thomas thinks the Cardinals are going to do, or do you like what Thomas would do if he was in charge? We want to hear it from you in the comments section. ZIPS projections. If you don't know what the hell those are, that's okay. That's what we're here for. We're going to explain what they are and what they have to say about what the Cardinals might look like in 2025. It's not doom and gloom as most people would make you think it is. So we'll get to that next with Thomas Gauvain on Locked On Cardinals. Attending NFL playoff games is just an unforgettable experience if you've never done it before. Playoff games just bring fans together. When the Rams were in St. Louis, the greatest show on turf days, it was unbelievable. Like, what an experience to be down at the Dome at the time. I'm sure many of you have been to a Cardinals playoff game, and there's just a different buzz around the ballparks and the stadiums and the domes and the arenas when it's playoff time. You felt it with the Blues, you felt it with the Rams when they were in town, you felt it with the Cardinals. You know what I'm talking about. And Gametime has now made it even easier to get tickets to your favorite events, including playoff games, to any sport that you want to go to with their new feature, Gametime Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. All you got to do is download the Gametime app, create your account, use the code LOCKEDONMLB. That'll get you $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Thank you again for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. You can leave your comments on YouTube as well as on Twitter. X anytime you want. Feedback always welcome and encouraged. Thomas Gauvain from Redbird Ranch joins us again today. All right, so for the unfamiliar, there's this thing called ZIPS projections. All right, and for those of you who don't know exactly what it is, it's super nerdy stuff, okay? It's stuff that you would listen to a baseball podcast in January type of nerdy stuff, all right? It is stats. It is what are so-and-so going to project to be coming up in 2025. Is there a different way to explain it, Thomas, that would make it simplified for everybody, or is that basically the gist of it? Did I say it right?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a program that runs projections for players based on comps of history and their last few years of performance.
See, Thomas says it better than I do. He's better at that kind of stuff. Well, ZIPS projections just came out. Came out on Monday, if memory serves. And we're going to start with the offensive side of things because ZIPS has Arenado still on the team because he is still on the team. So what did ZIPS have to say about Nolan? Because it wasn't that bad. And what did they have to say about the rest of the possible starting 9 hitters that caught your attention when you saw this come out?
Yeah, they actually have Arenado pegged up a little bit offensively. His total WAR drops 0.2 points. It's a rounding error essentially at that point. But his batting average dips. His slugging goes back up to 423. He has an OPS plus of 106. So he sees a little bit of a resurgence in his power and a dip in his batting average, which honestly I'd rather prefer for Arenado given his profile and what we need out of him. We don't need as many OBP batting average guys. We need some slug, so that's a nice exchange.
You don't want those little bloopy singles to right field that he had to do last year. You didn't like that?
No, hit it over the fence, please.
All right, who else stood out for you on the offensive side of things that ZIPS talked about?
Is Lars Nootbaar as our best offensive player according to OPS Plus at 116. I know, yeah, hold on, but they only see him for 475 plate appearances, so they're baking in some injuries there. The most negative player in my mind was Jordan Walker, sadly. He is projected for just half of WAR at 0.5 F4 and an OPS plus that is slightly below the average player. So I think that's a result of underwhelming performances these last 2 years. His WAR total is probably brought down by what would be less than average defense. Not miserable defense, just lower than average. So I don't think that ZIPS doesn't see Jordan Walker to have the breakout year that we're all wanting him to have this year.
Well, that sucks. Screw you, ZIPS.
Yeah.
I'm hoping for that. We're going to need that one. Pitching wise, cream of the crop for the Cardinals. No surprise, it's Sonny Gray, who, although didn't replicate the Cy Young worthy numbers that he had in Minnesota the previous year, was hardly a bad pitcher last year. I know the home run ball was a big issue. Obviously, he gave up a lot of taters compared to what he had done in previous seasons. What did ZIPS have to say about Sonny and the rest of this pitching staff who is now without, veterans like Kyle Gibson, Lance Lynn, Andrew Kittredge, as we've talked about plenty?
Yeah, Sonny Gray is actually a top 10 pitcher, according to ZIPS. So for those of you who are scared of using the A word, he is an ace at this point, according to ZIPS.
Uh-oh. He's throwing the A word around. Here we go.
Behind Sonny, there's a lot of young guys. McGreevy, Quinn Matthews, Tink Hence, Drew Rom. They're all given a whole bunch of innings. Gordon Graceffo. So I think ZIPS is seeing what the Cardinals are wanting. The problem is that the Cardinals have too many pitchers signed already, primarily Eric Fetty, Steven Matz, and Miles Michaelis. So they'll be blocking these pitchers, but there's a lot of innings given to those young guys that we're hoping to see.
All right. And when you say Sonny Gray is a top 10 pitcher, are we talking Major League Baseball? Are we talking National League?
All of baseball. He's up there with Scooble. He's up there with Glasnow. He's up, the big names. He's up there with them.
All right. So we're looking for big things out of Sonny Gray this year. Any other surprises through the ZIPS projections that, stood out to you in general? Like, did they give you any ideas of what the Cardinals record might be, anything like that? Or is it just, single players?
No, Dan Szymborski is the guy who produces all this and writes about it. I didn't see a record projection for him. I would imagine it's right around 80 to 83 wins. Probably the last sentence he has of his write-up is hilarious. He says that the team's biggest signing this winter was, I'm going to butcher his last name, Ryan Velade. I remember, infielder, I think. Even throwing in the towel would be more interesting and probably more helpful than cosplaying as the heat death of the universe. So Dan just wants us to do something.
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants the Cardinals to do something. The problem is like what you mentioned, though, is like they already got so many people signed, and the guys that are signed, they won't go anywhere, even if we wanted to trade them. So we're just kind of stuck with them. And unless injuries or something happens in spring training, I'm not saying to the Cardinals, but other teams, like if some pitchers go down, it happens every spring. Maybe a desperation trade for a guy, maybe somebody gets crazy and it's just like, dude, we need somebody, and they try to take Steven Matz or at this point, I don't see them trading an Eric Fetty anymore. I mean, it's unless something crazy happens and then somebody throws a ridiculous type of trade scenario at him. I think we're kind of looking at this is what they are right now, and they're really hoping that some of these guys, which is what every team does, though, that some of these young guys are going to take that next step. They're hoping Jordan Walker, who just a couple years ago was the top hitting prospect in all of baseball. So you're telling me everybody got this wrong and he stinks now, and I can't believe that. I can't believe at age 22 that his career is over and he's Dylan Carlson, newly Baltimore Oriole Dylan Carlson.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I get we've been burned before, but I choose not to believe that. Okay. I'm going to believe that Jordan Walker is going to be better, and he's not going to. I mean, just watching him at the winter warm up, he didn't look like a Dylan Carlson. He was just kind of, okay, yeah, I'll do whatever. He didn't look like that. Dylan Carlson never carried himself with confidence. I never saw it out of him hardly ever, except for like a week or two here and there. Jordan Walker looks like he's ready to rock. He's like, look, I've had enough of this. And you guys make fun of me in right field, and I might not be great defensively, but damn it, I've been able to hit my whole career, and I'm going to show you. And it looks like Brant Brown has rejuvenated some of these guys and has given them a little bit of fire in their bellies about what's going to happen here in 2025, which the Cardinals have sorely missed over the years, in my opinion. So, you did a story about this, so make sure you guys check that out at redbirdranch.com about the ZIPS projections, and he'll break it down a little more for you in words there. So do that at redbirdranch.com. We're going to talk about questions that the fans actually have for you, Thomas. You're becoming very popular here. They don't even ask me to answer things. They just go, if Thomas is around, can you ask him this? So we're going to get into that next year.
Thank you.
Locked On Cardinals. Thank you again for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen today. For your second listen, you can find Locked On MLB baseball guru Sully, bringing you a daily blend of humor and baseball. He's got you updated on all of the different roster moves throughout the offseason with every team. A new one from the Reds happened here today that they ended up taking Austin Hayes, former Orioles guy, somebody that you actually talked about, Thomas, a guy that made sense as a bench bat. We've heard the Cardinals could be interested in a right-handed bench bat. I don't know how real that is, because with Nato still on the team, that's like a spot that is not open. So it's like, I don't know if we're ever going to see anything like that, which whatever. But Sully has got you covered on all these other teams. Make sure you find Locked On MLB on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, questions from the fans. Nate from North County asks, we talked about David Robertson here, but who do you think takes over the Andrew Kittredge role in the bullpen? I guess if we don't get somebody from free agency, who's somebody on the roster that you could see slide into that role? I guess we'd go with a young guy. What do you think?
The logical non-wild ones would probably be either Libby or Riley O'Brien or Ryan Fernandez. If I'm going bonkers, it would be Tink Hence. I think that'd be awesome to see Hence be a setup man. Yeah.
You think Tink Hence is you think he's going to be a bullpen guy in his career? Because he's had some issues staying healthy for long term. You think that's a better spot for him?
Probably. He'd be nasty in relief. Picture like Jordan Hicks. That's what my mind is going to. Or a late year Carlos Martinez when we threw him in the bullpen for he's going to have nasty stuff in there. He'll be able to let it rip for 20, 25 pitches and not really worry about it. But I would love him to be a starter. There's a ton more value for him there.
No, glad you mentioned Riley O'Brien, a name that, what a difference a year makes. Last year, we're like, dude, we got the best closer in baseball all of a sudden out of nowhere, stolen from Seattle, and then injuries, and then he wasn't very good. But the stuff is still there, obviously. Like, he's still popping 96, 97,
Yeah.
So I would like to see what a healthy Riley O'Brien could do. You also had in your bullpen projections, Gordon Graceffa is a guy that might surprise some people. And, if he gets a chance, could take over a role like that. I know it's not the veteran guy that we're all thinking about, but again, it doesn't have to be a veteran. It could just be somebody who is good, like Ryan Fernandez was last year. They could slide in and fill that right-handed role in the bullpen. Steve from Hazelwood asks, is there a chance that Thomas Saggese doesn't make the opening day roster this year? What do you think?
Yes. I think he'll probably make it, but it might be, if he's going to be on the bench, like you said earlier, it's probably best for him to just get full reps in AAA, wait till an injury arises or Nado's traded, and then bring him back up. He'll probably start on the major league roster. If he's not starting every day, I would prefer him to be in AAA.
Yeah, it's one of those things too that spring training will tell us, who's going to be some of these bench guys. With Nato not getting traded again, that's just another spot that is full. You can't shift all these guys into getting the more at bats, because if Nato's still here, that means Gorman's still down a peg, and if you need those two to slide up, Nato's got to go. And at this point, we haven't heard anything that, we're still waiting on Bregman. He still hasn't made a choice. Like, he's like, now he could be going back to Houston again. So we're still playing the waiting game. But definitely, if Saggese isn't getting enough at bats in the major, what's the point? That's
I think there's a world where he outperforms Gorman in spring, and then Gorman becomes full-time DH, and then Saggese's just at second base, Donnie's in left field, something like that too.
Yeah, that's where your boy Cesar Prieto comes into play, where it's a guy that if he doesn't get the at-bats, we can live with that. Where Saggese, you think he could be something at some point. Karen from St. Louis asks, who is the biggest wild card on this team that could surprise people with a really good season? All right, who's somebody that might surprise us? What do you think?
That's a good question. I think Wilson Contreras.
If you want to,
you go first. I'll think. Yeah, you go first. I'll think.
You mentioned him earlier, and it's a guy that I'm really excited about because of the offense, and that's Ivan Herrera. Ivan Herrera, who I know he had struggles throwing the ball. How the hell did he just forget how to throw a ball to second base when he got to the major leagues, or is this something that's always been a problem? I'm not entirely sure. I never really heard about it being a problem before, so. Perhaps it's just something that fundamentally he's got a ticker. Maybe he'll work on it and get better. I wish we had a guy named Yadier Molina around to kind of help him with the defensive side of things. But as you mentioned earlier, the dude has hit everywhere, though. Like everywhere. He's got every level. He's been a slugger. 301 in 72 games last year, 5 dingers, 27 ribbies, and his first real extensive look in the big leagues. The OPS plus of 124. We had Wilson Contreras behind the plate, and you were able to go, well, not great, but look at his offense, not too shabby. Could he be something like that? Perhaps. I'm not saying he's going to be a multiple-time All-Star like Contreras has been, but obviously, if you get it figured out, and it wasn't just Herrera who couldn't throw anybody out. Nobody had a lot of
we were terrible.
Yeah, last year for the Cardinals. So and again. They didn't have guys in the minor leagues teaching these guys how to do anything. They were just like, well, Yachty's really good. He's going to be here for 50 years. It'll be fine. Didn't work out that way. So hopefully they get it all figured out, and he becomes at least a more capable defensive guy behind the plate. But I love the bat. He looks very much about a visual guy when he's at the plate, and he just looks like he's going to do damage every time he's up. He just looks confident. He's got the turned leg, and I don't know. I feel like he looks like a slugger. And if he is anything like he was over those 72 games last year, I think you're going to be surprised at how good Ivan Herrera could be for this team. Got a name for us real quick?
Wilson Contreras popped in my mind at first. I just don't know what people expect out of him at first base. His offense will be there. He'll be serviceable defensively. But then the next guy that's going to make some fans angry, would be Lars Nootbaar. I think people are giving up on it. He was another guy. You mentioned Walker at winter warm up. Nootbaar was on fire. Like, he was excitable. He was energetic. He was on it. I think he could really show up this year as a true 3.5, 4 warp, like, leader of the team all around.
We would love that. I think it's more frustration than anybody quitting on him. It's just like, man, and it's never because he's doing something wrong. He's not some idiot out there making terrible plays and getting hurt. Weird stuff happens to him. Like, it's a thumb, it's an ankle, it's this weird stuff. You just hate it. You're just like, and then you got to ramp it back up, and it takes him like another month to get back to where he needs to be. And as soon as you feel like he's about ready, he gets hurt again and something happens. And it's just, we really need, you got to let him be who he is, but at the same time, you're hoping for some health. I'll throw another one out as you really quick, because we don't really know him that well, and that's Eric Fetty. Like, what if Eric Fetty becomes the guy that was the guy for the White Sox in the first half last year and is that kind of all-star capable pitcher? What a difference that would make for the rotation to have a 1-2 punch with him and Sonny Gray. So I feel like people don't talk about him a lot because everybody expected him to be traded and not be around here. And he's still on this team, and he's a former first-round pick and was pretty darn good last year. So maybe things go well with him. Or maybe I'm just, trying to blow sunshine up people's butts. Maybe that could be the problem. Sometimes I'm too positive, Thomas.
There's nothing wrong with optimism.
We got to wrap things up here today. We appreciate Thomas coming in each and every week. Make sure you guys go to redbirdrants.com and you read up on all his articles and all of the work that everybody does at redbirdrants.com. You got anything lined up this week that you're going to be writing about that you want to tease some people with?
Not that I can think off the top of my head. Wanting to produce something about Nolan Gorman and how he's probably already had his chance to show us what he is.
So a negative I'm kidding.
It's Redbird Rants, man. We got to rant.
You got to rant. It can't all be sunshine and rainbows. I get it. All right. Well, check it out at redbirdrants.com. Thomas, appreciate you stopping by as always, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you guys for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you haven't already, give Thomas a follow at Thomas Gauvain on Twitter, X at LO_Cardinals, and at JD Sports Radio. You can subscribe on YouTube, and help our channel and love for the Cardinals grow. You guys are the best fans of baseball for a reason. And if I don't say it, I'll get in trouble. Happy birthday to the wife, celebrating her birthday today. 21 years old again.
Happy
it's
birthday.
Incredible. I don't know how she does it.
Wow, how she does it. Yeah.
It's amazing. We'll see you next time on Locked On Cardinals. Have a good one.